What's up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we're going to be breaking down the fantasy outlook for SAQUON Barkley heading into the 2020 season. Before we get started, hit that like and subscribe button for us for more videos like this one, and let's get right into it. So last year, a bit of a disappointment from SAQUON Barkley, obviously going as the number one overall. Didn't quite give you what you expected, but in retrospect, still a pretty dominant season. And unlike some years in the past where a player wasn't able to quite hit their lofty expectations and saw their ADP tumble, not happening this year. Right now, Saquon is effectively the 102 locked in. And every now and then jumps over Christian McCaffrey for the 101. So people still believe in his talent, and rightfully so. We look at what he did last year. Obviously, missing 3 games with a high ankle sprain, but it was more than just the games that he missed. High ankle sprains are basically a death knell for a skill position player's season. It took much longer than 3 weeks for Saquon Barkley to actually get back to form. Although he was back on the field, he definitely wasn't himself. It took him till near the end of the season before he finally looked like Saquon Barkley again. Some other factors as well that could lead to an even bigger season than 2018 for Saquon we'll get into in a second. But last year, 217 carries, still broke 1,000 rushing yards, 52 receptions and 438 receiving yards, and 8 total touchdowns. Again, as we mentioned, missing 3 games with that high ankle sprain and was limited in probably a good 6 to 8 games due to that injury as well. Finishes with the 10th most fantasy points in PPR and averaged 18.8 fantasy points per game, best for 7th overall at the position. When we look at his game script, though, again, obviously suffering that injury early on in week 3 against Tampa Bay, and then is out until week 7. Does still have a pretty good game against week 8, but you can just tell based on that yards per carry count, things didn't really start clicking again till pretty close to the end of the season. Going against Miami, Washington, and Philadelphia, when he starts seeing that yards per carry count go up and he starts hitting 100-yard games again. So clearly he was limited from weeks 7 to 14 from this injury, and it definitely showed in the stat department, although still posting up 2 running back 1 weeks. Had some weeks where he didn't even finish as a running back 2, but still keeping a baseline of about 8-9 points wasn't the worst, but it definitely wasn't what you expected with your 101. If you were able to survive with Saquon Barkley last year, obviously he was able to reward you in the playoffs, having those massive boom games against Miami and Washington in week 15 and 16, averaging 8.6 yards per carry against Washington, absolutely insane, and still maintaining a pretty ridiculous target share throughout the entire season, having the lowest his lowest game was 3 targets and averaging at least 5 to 6 every single game. So that obviously keeping your floor, especially in PPR, and part of the reason why we're still incredibly bullish on what Saquon can do in 2020. Arguably, outside of Christian McCaffrey, there really is no excuse taking anyone else at the 101, 102. And there's even an argument to say that, well, Christian McCaffrey likely to recede a little bit or could potentially be bit with an injury bug at some point. It's hard to imagine that he's able to maintain the efficiency that he's had forever. Saquon could even be an argument for the 101. We're not making it quite yet, but the 102 for sure. Some other things to note from last year, Saquon Barkley managed an 88.7% opportunity share, which is number 3 at the position. Obviously, only a few workhorse backs left in the NFL, but Saquon is most assuredly one of them, and his involvement in the passing game is what truly gives him that massive ceiling, averaging 5.6 targets per game, which is insane for a running back, 501 yards created, and yards created per touch, 14th best at in the league with 1.86. Now, he saw a pretty big dip in his breakaway run rate. Part of the reason that some people were skeptical of his 2018 season was he got a good bit of his production on long runs. So we saw a pretty steep drop in that last year, but I think that's more due to his high ankle sprain than anything. And it's kind of hard to really fault Saquon with having production by scoring breakaway runs because he's insanely talented and athletic, and you can expect that to continue to happen while he's in his prime. Something else to note, last year he also faced some of the worst run blocking efficiency in the league, 63.2 run blocking efficiency score from his offensive line, which is 47th among running backs. And he also faced one of the worst game scripts in the NFL with a negative 4.49 score, which was 27th in the NFL. So hoping that those things turn around a little bit this year. Maybe not so much the game script, but the run blocking efficiency there should be a pretty good shot of it increasing this year with them drafting Andrew Thomas at the 104, spending a few more picks throughout the draft on offensive line, and the rest of their picks being spent in the linebacker core. They're going after cornerbacks Xavier McKinney in the second round. So really trying to shore up that defense. They went after Kyler Fackrell, Blake Martinez, and James Bradbury in the offseason. So not really expecting there to be a massive improvement to their defense, but perhaps they'll be able to keep them at least a little bit closer. Also, the improvement maybe, at least for fantasy purposes. Bringing in Jason Garrett is probably a bit underrated for Saquon. When we look at what he's done historically, he absolutely loves feeding his lead running back, and there's been plenty of fantastic running back seasons from the likes of Ezekiel Elliott, DeMarco Murray in years past as well. And we're really excited to see if there's an uptick in volume, what that actually does for Saquon Barkley. But as long as he continues to maintain a high volume in the passing offense, this could actually be a pretty sneaky good offensive team for fantasy purposes. Got the fastest core of running backs and receivers in the league, even faster than the Kansas City Chiefs when you compare them pound for pound. And Daniel Jones coming into his second year, we're hoping for a bit of an improvement. If that offensive line is improved significantly through some of the additions that they made through the draft, that could only help to make matters a little bit better. We're expecting that breakaway run rate to tip back up, and as long as the volume stays there, Saquon is going to be an elite running back every single week for the entire season. Now, where we have him projected right now is getting 1,300 rushing yards, 69 receptions, 566 receiving yards, and obviously seeing a positive regression in the touchdown department up to 14. Clearly, there's plenty of room for that to grow even further, especially in the receiving department. Already averaging about 6 targets a game, puts him on pace for close to 100 target season, so could even be higher there. Rushing yards could obviously go up if he's able to get closer to his 100 yard per game average that we were seeing in the games where he was healthy, so obviously that could get closer to 1,1600. And then touchdowns are pretty arbitrary and hard to project, but obviously that could go up as well. Already have a pretty healthy uptick there, so not going to bank on that one too much, but clearly gives you plenty of upside anytime you're projecting a baseline of over 300 fantasy points. It definitely warrants a top 2 pick for Saquon Barkley in every single league format. Absolutely love him this year, and so should you. Still one of the number 1 targets for Dynasty and Keeper Leagues as well. Still in his prime, expecting fantastic things from Saquon Barkley this year. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more videos like this, and we will see you in the next video.